The push for legislating Sunday began as far back as the 4th century with the decree of Constantine, who issued a decree saying, "On the venerable day of the sun, let the magistrates and the people residing in cities rest, and let all workshops be closed." Not long after Constantine sanctioned Sunday as a day of rest, the Catholic Church in 364 AD recapitulated the same, saying Christians must not Judaize by resting on the Sabbath, but must work on that day, rather honoring the Lord's Day, if they can, resting then as Christians. But if any shall be found to be Judaizers, let them be anathema from Christ. It's worth noting that not only will there be a law making Sunday a mandatory day of rest, but there will eventually be a law making the true seventh-day Sabbath a day of work, just like Pharaoh did in Egypt when he forced the Hebrews to make bricks without straw. The decree was intentionally designed to double their workload, forcing them to labor on the Sabbath. In Exodus chapter 5 and verse 5, Pharaoh addresses Moses, "And Pharaoh said, Behold, the people of the land now are many, and ye make them rest from their burdens." The word for rest there means to keep the Sabbath, and in response to their Sabbath keeping, Pharaoh responded, "And Pharaoh commanded the same day the taskmasters of the people and their officers, saying, Ye shall no more give the people straw to make brick, as heretofore. Let them go and gather straw for themselves." And when Pharaoh had made a decree forcing God's people to violate the Sabbath, then the plagues fell upon Egypt. At the end of time, meaning in the near future, we will see the same process. After Sunday laws are enforced through legislation, eventually there will be laws demanding everyone to work on the seventh-day Sabbath. At that time it may be said, "It is time for thee, Lord, to work, for they have made void thy law." When the laws of man make void the law of God, Satan will cross a line and God will intervene, sending the 7 last plagues. Sunday laws are not foreign to modern America. In the United States, blue laws are laws enforcing Sunday rest. These laws were held in high regard in colonial America. In Virginia in 1610, the law stated, "Every man and woman shall repair in the morning to the divine service and sermons preached upon the Sabbath," meaning Sunday, "and in the afternoon to divine service, and catechizing upon pain for the first fault to lose their provision and the allowance for the whole week following. For the second, to lose the said allowance and also be whipped, and for the third, to suffer death." The death penalty for violating the Sunday law also existed in Massachusetts and Connecticut, while New York, Pennsylvania, and Maryland had lesser penalties in place, like forfeiting 200 pounds of tobacco, being whipped up to 39 lashes, or being kept in the stocks for up to 3 hours. In more recent times, the march towards Sunday legislation has been rapidly progressing and steadily increasing. Pope John Paul II said in the papal bull Dies Domini, or the Day of the Lord, that Christians will naturally strive to ensure that civil legislation respects their duty to keep Sunday holy. Pope Benedict in 2005 continued to champion the enforcement of Sunday by law, saying, "Society risked being enslaved to work and must recover the traditional day of rest." He continued saying, "Catholic values were not negotiable, and they must feel particularly bound to introduce and support laws based on these values." The Catechism of the Catholic Church itself states that in respecting religious liberty and the common good of all, Christians should seek recognition of Sundays and the Church's holy days as legal holidays. And this is where coronavirus comes in. Because as the world continues to sound the battle cries against climate change and against pandemics and viruses like the coronavirus, the enforcement of a day of rest will gradually become the solution that the public will demand. Why? Because pandemics will and already are being seen as a result of climate change.
In 2021, the world will start looking to life beyond the pandemic.
Future of the Earth's climate.
Climate change is caused by us, so in other words, it's up to us to make a turnaround.
Today, our focus is on climate change over the
highest temperature ever recorded.
Remember, the Pope already began inserting this idea into the public mind when he said coronavirus could be nature's response to climate change. And others are saying the coronavirus outbreak is part of the climate change crisis. Still, other articles have touched on the relationship between the virus and climate change. NBC published this article saying coronavirus shutdowns have unintended benefits: cleaner air, clearer water. CNN wrote, satellite images show less pollution over the US as coronavirus shuts down public places. In China, it's the same story: why China's air has been cleaner during the coronavirus outbreak. Venice's canal water looks clearer as coronavirus keeps visitors away, and coronavirus lockdowns continue to suppress European pollution. The streets of major cities have been dramatically emptied of traffic. Denver, Paris, Nashville, Las Vegas, and thousands of other cities are emptied. This is why it is being said global response to COVID-19 should be a model for action on climate. With lockdowns so strongly impacting the climate in a positive way, and knowing where prophecy tells us we are heading, to a global enforcement of a day of rest, it should be no surprise to see mandatory Sunday rest being promoted as the policy that will maintain these positive changes. On March 24th, coronavirus is punishment from God, Pennsylvania lawmaker suggests, calls for statewide Day of Atonement. On April 20th, the Christian Post wrote, "Is the pandemic God's judgment? America has 10 reasons to think so." And in this article, each of the 10 reasons are related to the breaking of each of God's 10 commandments. And therefore, in reason number 4, he states, we know no Sabbath in our 24/7 economy. He explains that we give no Sabbath. We break Sabbath by withholding relief from the burdened. So already this pandemic, he's arguing, is a judgment of God as a result of breaking the Sabbath commandment. Perhaps well-meaning, but themselves deceived, many Christians will point to calamities on land and sea, to the storms of wind, the floods, the earthquakes, the destruction by fire, as judgments indicating God's displeasure because Sunday is not sacredly observed. These calamities will increase more and more. One disaster will follow closely upon the heels of another, and those who make void the law of God will point to the few who are keeping the Sabbath of the 4th commandment as the ones who are bringing wrath upon the world. This falsehood is Satan's device that he may ensnare the unwary. Pandemics, earthquakes, tsunamis, fires, and floods of the most awful proportions will follow one after another, and the sentiment will be advocated that were those keeping the Sabbath compelled to obey the law for Sunday observance, there would be a cessation of these terrible judgments. And with the passing of the Sunday law, the mark of the beast crisis will begin.